I'm ready.
Okay, one more clap.
All right, go. And all right, go.
Hey, what's up, Max Ordinate Nation? It is Tyler
And Jeff.
We're here. Today's episode, a little less structured. We're going to have a guest on. We're just going to bullshit, kind of talk about training, instructors, a little bit of law enforcement world. He is a cop. He's in the flyover states.
Nebraska.
Iowa. Aren't they the same?
I think they are.
So we're going to have KP on the show, and we're just going to kind of talk about things as they come up. So we'll get that intro out of the way, and then we will get that interview knocked out. See you soon.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It
gets the people going.
Well, Hector, here's the game plan. You're gonna bring us 2 absolute martinis. You know how I like them, straight up. And then precisely 7 1/2 minutes after that, you're gonna bring us 2 more. Then 2 more after that every 5 minutes until one of us passes the fuck out.
You got a bad attitude and you don't listen.
Oh, yes. There will be blood.
It is not the violence that sets a man apart. All right, it is the distance that he is prepared to go.
Ever notice how you come across somebody once in a while that you shouldn't have fucked with? That's me.
What the fuck else would you do this job? Cocaine and hookers, my friend.
Welcome to the Max Ordinate Podcast. Oh, look, you got pants on. I don't know if the color of the shirt with the color of the pants.
I know. I feel like I should put on a black shirt.
Mixed with
I know it's a lot.
snakeskin Jordans. I don't know if it's flowing.
It's a lot.
But the hat kind of brings it all in.
So I saw the red-ish.
And the black.
And then the red-ish.
And then, it's fine. It's
know
fine.
what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't give 2 fucks.
I mean,
obviously, I clearly give 2 fucks because I changed my pants.
You look like this, and I brought back the 90s with the chain wallet.
So we're all good. You ever lost your wallet, and the only thing that saved it was a chain? I don't think that was ever a thing.
I've actually lost my wallet by me losing it personally. Just like this morning, it took me at least 45 minutes to find the key to the truck.
I've been riding my motorcycle for probably 30 years, and I put my wallet in my back pocket, and I've never lost it.
But you don't have the coal packer, bro. I mean, I'm just saying.
Whatever.
When you can't afford snakeskin Jordans, you refer to the chain wallet.
These are, in fact, they're not snakeskin. But they are retro Jordan 1 golf shoes.
They're fucking snakes. I'm looking.
Yeah,
it's alligator.
And I have them in white.
Alligator.
And I have them in white.
Those are badass.
Thank you. Fuck. Finally.
The intro to this episode is going to be some like 90s rap talking about alligator suede.
Oh. You know,
nice.
you know.
You know, I guess.
All right. Hey, I'm Jeff, by the way.
KP.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, where are you at right now? You're in Iowa?
Yeah. So I'm still in Des Moines. Yeah.
Okay.
Still working as a cop on our SWAT team. Running all the sniper stuff for 88. And then just last week, it was tossed around about maybe becoming the Midwest LE rep for KGM suppressors.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's funny that you bring up KGM. I think I have 4 of them waiting for me to go and pay the man and do all of the weird stuff.
Go buy your stamps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one that's been there for 2 years.
No shit. Wow.
Yeah, I just haven't had the time to go and do all of it, and finally getting there this week to go fill out the forms, learn how the whole trust process works and all of that craziness.
Yeah,
so
I got 3 that are still in jail.
Would that be a retirement gig, or is that going to in
for now?
Yeah,
it would be like, luckily we work 5 on, 4 off, so my 4 days off would allow me to do stuff here in the Midwest, and then hopefully, yes, a retirement job. So
very nice.
Yeah. By the way, before I forget, apparently cops are worse on shit than Marines because I broke my Falcor action.
Oh no! How'd you do it?
I broke the bolt release.
You broke the bolt release. What about it broke?
The pin that holds it in with the little spring.
Yeah.
Broke in half. Like, I was shooting, dude, go to rack the bolt, and it comes back and hits me in the face.
The pin broke?
Yeah, when I started tearing it apart, the pin that holds that spring in there is broken in half. Yeah.
I have had that happen on one. I had to send it back, and it wasn't because I broke the pin during cycling. I had one of the original bolt stops, and it had a weaker spring on the inside. So after a while, every time I racked the bolt would just come out, but the bolt stop was still there.
It was still intact. Everything was there.
So when I went to take that pin out, that pin had bended on the inside.
Oh, wow.
And short story, trying to turn it to get it to come out, because it was now bent in a, half arc. It ended up snapping that pin in half, and I had to send it back and have the dudes at Falcor, ream that baby out for me.
Oh, they took care of me, bro. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting when you go through the process of developing an action, kind of like I got to do with Falcor Defense, where we make an action. Well, actually, they invited me up and said, "Hey, we need you to break this for us." And I'm like, "Oh, easy, bam!" And I'm, not even 120 seconds on the range, and I'm like, "So what next?" And so we go to the table and we think about redesigning. And when you think about a bolt stop for a gun that is linear, all the pressure is on the bolt pin, right? The pin actually holds the bolt stop in there. So we talk about it like, let's get rid of the linear, let's go with a vertical bolt stop, and then everything seems great. We run it, we test it. I ran it through a match. I actually ran serial number 001 through a competition and won, but I was having issues, but they weren't related to the bolt stop. They were issues with feeding, like things just weren't going as smooth as they could. So we had to fix that. And then, a year later, it's like, okay, these springs on the bolt stop are now failing. They're, every time you cycle the bolt, it just pops open the bolt release, and now we've got problems. So then got to fix that, but it's amazing how, like, you can go through as much R&D as possible, and there will still be things that come up later where you're like, fuck, never thought of that shit.
Well, yeah, anybody's going to break anything, right? I don't run any of my stuff hard enough to break it. I mean, that's just the reality. But I need my stuff designed well enough to function flawlessly in the times that I do use it. So
absolutely,
it's kind of like different, different uses, but still need the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're the kind of guy that doesn't even need a bolt stop.
I don't. I just shoot it once, and it's done.
So, also the last time we talked last time we got to see each other was SHOT Show of 2022.
22, yeah.
And we got you hooked up with Leupold to run some of their stuff and break it or beat it or tell them it sucked. So what did you end up going with, and how did it work out?
I went with the Mark 5 5-25.
Okay.
With the Trimmer 3. At that time, we were kind of bidding on a contract for a government agency, and that's what they were running. And I wasn't familiar with it, so I'm like, hey, let me take this thing for a test spin. Absolutely love that scope. Probably the easiest scope I've ever zeroed. I've beat the shit out of it. and it's never lost zero ever. I mean, that thing, the rifle that it's on, everything is just a badass system. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the Tremor 3 as law enforcement, because all the military stuff I do, if it's not Tremor 3 yet, it will be soon, right? A lot of the scopes that we're pushing these guys to use, especially on the gas gun, is all Tremor 3. So teaching them how to configure the wind dots for miles per hour for, different projectiles. The Marines are on 308 right now, but it's not going to be long before they phase in a 6.5 Creedmoor. So then it'll be, every dot won't be 4 miles an hour anymore. It'll be something different, maybe a 5. So a lot of work with the Tremor 3 and understanding all the little details that are built into it. But when you think about a law enforcement side, like where you're at, what do you think the pull is for departments or for teams to say, we want to go with the Tremor 3?
I think you would have to be working in an environment where your average deployment was 300 yards or better.
Yeah.
I
mean, I know honestly, it's got the mover grids on the top, right? Mm-hmm. So it goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 miles an hour. But when you're a cop, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the times you'll find yourself powered out, and with first focal plane powered out to 5 power, that 2, 4, 6, 8 doesn't become that readable.
No, I was just gonna touch on that. If I would have any say-so or any input, I would love to see Leupold come out with something in a second focal plane that's just simple, just for the LE market. That's where, for example, that's where Night Force shines. They're the only one doing that. I think there would be a market there, but that's just my opinion, because you get too many guys that, competition guy this or military sniper this told me I have to have first focal plane. Well, then when they power it down, it's a red dot.
Yeah. Do you guys have continuity amongst all of your equipment as far as reticles, optics, guns, or do you have a window you sort of want your guys to stay within and they got a couple of choices? Because I know when I was on the sniper team in a law enforcement setting, we kind of had some rules we had to stay within, but it wasn't nearly as we all have to have the same reticle, we all have to have the same glass. It was kind of just our sniper leader would check out our gear, and as long as it falls within some parameters, we were good.
Right now we are all the same across the board. We're all running AI ATs in 308, and then we're running Night Force attackers 4-16 with the more reticle. Obviously, the more time, since your class and the more time I've spent behind it, I would go to mill all day long.
Yeah.
All day long. It just makes more sense to me now. I can't hardly understand MOA anymore. All my personal stuff is in mill. But for now, that's where we're at. I know we do have some new scopes coming, which they're still Night Force, but they're going to put they bought the Mill C reticle.
Okay.
So the team's going to be split now. And to me, for what we do, it doesn't make a difference. You don't have to be on the same page necessarily. Yeah.
No, it's pretty easy to go, back and forth if you had to. I mean, especially at the closer distances, you're not really doing a whole lot of communication
right.
from shooter to shooter. And if you are, I think, there's ways that you can work around it. When you said Night Force is offering stuff to law enforcement, I say they're half and half. I feel like they're doing it and nobody else is really doing it at that level, but they're still not fully committed to understanding what the law enforcement side needs. I mean, how long has the MIL-R or the MOA reticles been out?
Right.
And that's what they put in these second focal plane scopes, which is great, but they're not adding any of the shit in there that would actually benefit a law enforcement sniper, where if, a guy had to do a moving target engagement. Homeboy comes busting out the door and he takes off beelining, and you got to take that shot. There's so much calculations that are happening, like, okay, what magnification am I on? And a lot of this comes down to like SOPs. If you're on the lowest power setting, which is 4, has that cop been training to the standard of shooting movers on 4 power? Does he know what the different speeds of a running, jogging, walking individual is going to be? So I feel like they could do something to further help law enforcement with a reticle selection that's not just a fucking crosshair, in minutes or mils.
So what I heard out of that is you and I need to go visit Nick and have some conversations. Get Loophole on board.
We should, man. I drew up a reticle. I don't really know where it's at in the, Loophole's got a lot of stuff in the fire right now, but I did draw up a reticle. Right now, it can be used first or second focal plane, but it's a very simplified setup. It doesn't have a grid in every direction. It doesn't have wind dots. Like, it's actually focused on a law enforcement guy, and it puts those dots at speeds that are more relative to what a human being does. So like a 3 mile an hour, 6 mile an hour, 9 mile an hour, and 12 mile an hour. And then, depending on if it's first focal plane, nothing needs to change. But if it's second focal plane, then it's looking at how does the scope need to be configured, and can you purchase that scope at different, I want to say, like, let's say your whole team wanted to buy the optic with that law enforcement reticle in it, but you wanted the true measurements to be at a different magnification than max, right? I mean,
right.
Having your mill or your MOAs true at 16 power is great, but when you're a law enforcement guy who's constantly engaging on 4 power, what if there was an option where 4 power was your true area? So
I like
again,
that.
like, I'm sure there's many things that could happen. Unfortunately, I don't know how many companies will get on board. There's just not a lot of money in it.
No, and that's the thing, because you take the LE guys, man, they'll run scopes for 20 years. I know you've seen it. I have, all the time. And of course, you make the argument of, hey, tell your boss you're going to go get him a 20-year-old computer and, let him work with that. Why are you working with this? And of course, then, the bosses get pissed off. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I first pulled a rifle out of the armory, it had a fixed 10 power on it. And when I left, the department rifles were still running 3 to 9s, right? Not our personal build. So,
wow.
But the second part of that is we also struggled finding what we were talking about, where, the law enforcement optics and reticle options, I think they vary greater than from the military needs more than a lot of people think. And,
right.
There was no like second focal plane options that were decent for what we wanted to run. So we just kind of got what we got, and we all ran Night Force because it was the only real option.
Right. Yeah.
Moving into, where I'm at now, which is more of a hunter setting, first focal plane doesn't really work for me, because when I power that up on a coyote at 100 yards, I'm the crosshair is covering his entire head.
Right.
So I would be a good conversation to have with Loophole. Just more. I would like to see more second focal plane options on the market, and not this just huge push to everybody's running first focal plane, and that's kind of just the new normal.
Right. And you touched on a good point. Not only would you hit the LE market, but you'd hit the hunter market as well. I mean,
yeah,
there's plenty of that out there. Absolutely.
Yeah, the market, whether it's gear or training, military kind of dominates. I think there's a shift happening where the precision rifle competition side is maybe taking the lead and kind of pushing more development in terms of cartridge and chassis and things like that. But you see it with, you see some departments that have made the switch to first focal plane. And, you know, I think a lot of it has to do with like dudes getting out of the military and they're either joining a department or a department gets trained by a guy who was in the military, but the only thing he ever learned was mills and first focal plane.
Yep.
And so he goes there and he teaches this department. He could be the greatest guy at teaching you positional and all of this other shit. But then when it comes down to the optic, he's like, that sucks. You should buy first focal plane and you should buy mills. And, you know, because that's what he knows. So,
can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of departments who kind of get roped into that when in reality, like second focal plane is probably, you know, still the best option, you know, because of how the SOPs are structured for departments, you know, how you're going to deploy. So, speaking on that, so our last episode was about vetting your instructors, and I don't think we called anybody out, did we?
No, we didn't.
No, we had a person who doesn't have any firearm experience, but she's interested. So I gave her a homework assignment of, here are the states that you are allowed to go to. I want you to pick somebody for pistol, somebody for carbine, somebody for rifle, and tell me who it is that you picked and why. Like, what was the criteria for you? And some of it was website driven, like their website looked really good. They explained a lot. Like, even if, again, she's a new shooter, so even if they explained bullshit, as long as it sounded good, like they could hook and sinker, right? So, you know, but website was a big one. Google searches, forums, and, you know, anywhere she could pull information. But there were so many options for the different styles of training, and, you know, it just became difficult, almost to the point where, like, she'll eventually just give up and pick the one that looks the best because it's so hard to filter through all the shit, right?
Yep.
So it was interesting to see who she picked, and just the conversation about, like, how do you vet your instructors and how do you know that you're getting what you pay for? And I'm not saying that you can't go to different people and learn different cool things, because everybody's going to have, you know, you could take precision rifle, for example, and you might have, you know, this company over here, right? 3-4 different companies. And depending on who the instructor is, each one's going to have a certain area that they deem the most important. You know, like, one guy's all about that natural point of aim, and the other guy's all about, you know, breathing and trigger press, and the other guy's all about, you know, your rifle setup. You know, so you can learn plenty of stuff from multiple instructors, but that's just 3 or 4 out of how many, you know?
Right.
You know, I used to tell people that I would meet that were trying to get into precision rifle shooting or competition style stuff. They'd be like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about, like, joining this precision rifle club and be part of the club, shoot their monthly matches. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, so what training are you going to go to? You know, one, I wanted to know if they were talking about coming to train with us, but 2, I wanted to know if they were just going to train in general. And they're like, oh, no, like, I talked to the guys in the rifle club and they said they'd show me. And it's so much inbreeding in some of these clubs where just because a guy shoots well at a competition doesn't necessarily mean he knows what the hell he's doing. It just means that he's figured out how to shoot well in a competition.
Right.
You know, like, some people, and I don't have any specific people in mind, but I see it all the time. You know, Vanessa had mentioned it probably a week ago. She was at a competition and I was like, so tell me about it. Like, what happened? How'd you do? Yada, yada, yada. She, you know, out of nowhere, she's like, oh my God, you know how you're always complaining about, like, people asking you for wind calls and shit. She's like, somebody asked me like what my wind call was. And I'm like, yeah, like it's a thing. It is a real thing. And it makes me wonder if some of these people who do really well, maybe top 3, top 5 shooters, top 10 even, if you were to put them in a competition where they have no one around them, and I can't be like, Jeff, you hit that target. What'd you hold, bro?
What was your win?
Would they still succeed? Or is some of this stuff just really, you get really good at gaming, like I've been on an 80s movie kick lately. I was watching Days of Thunder. You remember Days of Thunder?
Oh, yeah, bro.
All right. So there's a part of the movie where Tom Cruise is like, I don't know anything about this car. They told me to get in and drive, so I just drove, so he doesn't know anything about it. He's just good at doing laps in a circle, So anyways, back to the instructor part. What year did I come to see you guys? Was that 2017?
18.
18? Okay, so
Yeah.
2018. And really, I just want to kind of hit on like that training that we did and then talk about what was the training like before then? How did it alter you or your department? I know that you are doing stuff with 88 Tactical now, right?
Yeah, I run their sniper side of the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So over in Nebraska, tearing it up, and we could talk about 88 Tactical. I'd be interested in like I know that they have a badass facility there. That thing is pretty sick. I don't know I know they got the range. The range that we did the class at was theirs, right?
Yes. Yep.
So they got that range, which is pretty slick, but just their facility at their gun store with their members club and all that shit. I mean,
and that's doubled, if not tripled in size since you were here.
Yeah, I remember they had a fight room, dude. They had a fight room. They have a tower that you can rappel down from. I mean, it's like a centralized. I mean, you're in Nebraska, so there's like one town anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not wrong, right?
No, you're not.
No, I mean, so the whole state eventually just going to flock to 88 Tactical to come and buy a gun or get some cool training. And I mean, but their place is so nice. It's badass. So before I had come out in 2018, what was your guys' training on a monthly basis? I know most departments, they get to train once or twice a month on average for sniper stuff. What did that training kind of consist of in terms of what you guys would practice or go to the range or the standards that you would hold?
So I guess to start that off, and let me preface with this. I'm not trying to take away from anybody. I learned a lot of good stuff. But I remember my first training day, I showed up and was issued a shooting jacket, a shooting mitt, and a loop sling.
Nice. That's legit, man. Is that 1980?
That was, no, that was 2009.
Oof.
Okay. Yeah, right. And that's where I proceeded to get myself in trouble because I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Because I'm not wearing it on a call out. So why do I have it? Right.
Yeah.
Up until probably about 2016, 2017, our training consisted literally of 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, and all positional shooting. Not that positional shooting is bad, but if you shot off your pack or if you shot off a tripod, that was a gimmick.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, since going to your class, there's a couple things that I've done. First of all, we are very tripod heavy on my team. We spend a lot of time on that. My thing is, especially nowadays, I've got to be responsible for that round coming down range, right?
Yeah.
I want the most stable shooting platform I can find, and standing offhand at 200 yards is not it. Whereas I can pop that thing on a really right stuff and I'm dialing them in the head. So we do a lot of that. I really focus when I get new guys on proper rifle setup. I didn't know how much I didn't know until I went to your class. There were some things I picked up just on that aspect.
Yeah.
We focused, we've gotten away, the old school was pocket of the shoulder because everything was with a sling, right? Now we're more center line, we're more collarbone with that. Just everything from the fundamentals up has changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think your rifles weigh roughly in their current configuration?
Probably about 20 pounds.
20 pounds. Ooh. That's an animal to sit there and
yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, that's good, man. So tripod is the way forward. I mean, it is definitely a tool that has changed the game a little bit, right?
Right.
And it's becoming so popular that I see it all the time, and that's kind of why, like, on our podcast now, like, we'll typically have a portion of the podcast that is dedicated to, not really calling people out, but watching videos and explaining what's going wrong. Like, why is this guy's recoil management so crazy, or why is this guy's positional so bad? And then you'd be able to break down somebody's video and use it as a learning tool for somebody else. And it's funny that the amount of tripod videos that I see, because it's the new popular thing to do right now. It's still relatively new to a lot of people who are getting into precision rifle, where they see people shooting from a tripod. They're like, oh, damn, I need to do that, right? And there's instructors out there who do the same thing, where they are shooting from a tripod just for the gram, or, to get some social media presence, where they're showing people they're doing the hot and popular thing. But and I'm sure you've seen it too, because what the right things are that you're looking for. And I don't want to say the right way, but the right things, right? The right principles, the right fundamentals behind a tripod. So you see some of these people that are in a tripod taking shots, and you're like, oh, I know this guy has no fucking idea what he's doing right now. Like, he's just doing it for the gram,
Yeah, and because it's I don't want to say it's the new hot thing, but it kind of is. And it's such I don't say it's an easy platform, but like you said, it's so much easier to be on that tripod to take them 200, 300, 400 yard shots standing versus obviously, offhand or something. So it's easy to get in and kind of make the steel ring and take videos and post online improperly, that it's almost rampant. It's just everywhere, because you can get a 17-pound rifle, stick it on your really right stuff tripod and not have a clue, and still make decent shots, take videos and post online, and people are like, oh, tell me how you did it. And suddenly you're the new instructor on Instagram.
That's why paper is the great equalizer.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it is. There's definitely the paper aspect, right? But as long as you got enough fingers, you can start covering holes up as you're taking the photo.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just putting my thumb up there to show reference to the size, Meanwhile, your fist is covering all the shots that went where you didn't want them to go.
Look at this amazing 3-shot group.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And going back to instructors, now you have instructors that are coming out and going, okay, I don't want to lean into my tripod for recoil management. I want to stand straight up. What they're not telling you is they're shooting some 6 BRA or some shit with no recoil.
Yeah.
Not a 308.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. And it doesn't work on, can I get away with it on a really right stuff or something similar? Sure. But the minute I step down to that team that can't afford that, and they're running some kind of saddle, they're lost. Because now that recoil's done kicked their ass. So
and we talked about that the price to entry, the barrier to entry is so low now, because you've got these low recoil rounds and all this equipment that'll sort of mask all these poor poor skill sets, whatever, that the second you go to like a short barreled 308 or something like that you just get your ass handed to you, because you've been handicapped with that 6BR and that 17-pound rifle and that really expensive tripod.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
so when I was, man, this was probably, I'd say 2014, reaching into 2015, I had a couple people who were training underneath me to learn how to shoot and compete. And one of my rules, I had two rules, and one of them was you had to start off shooting 308. And, you know, I mean, yeah, you got the wind benefits and stuff like that. But in reality, it came down to recoil management. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, you know, 2015 timeframe, you were just starting to see tripods that were a little more stable, right? So you fast forward a couple years, and even to this day, I tell people, like, you want to get really good at shooting from a tripod, you should start with the shitty one, right?
Yes.
Really build your fundamentals, build everything that's going to help you be as stable as possible from that shitty ass $100 tripod. And then when you upgrade, you'll have the skills and the fundamental soundness that will translate to that $1,500 tripod, you know, the one that you got to take a loan out for to purchase. And, you know, you'll still be this fundamental guru. But a lot of that gets lost, kind of like, you know, you were mentioning the 6BR, 6BRA. Like, I shoot a 6BR. I have a 223 bolt gun. Like, I have all of these bolt rifles that have little to zero recoil, right? I mean, I could be in the most messed up position and take a shot, and I've still got that recoil management that I want. But if I were to take that same shot, you know, and I've been in that position where I'm out teaching the Marines, I'm like, let me have that rifle. I'll show you guys how to do this. And like, I'll get in this position. I'll take a shot. The rifle jumps like 6 mils of right. I'm like, oh, fuck, I need to fix my position. Like, right. Instantly humbles you back to you're stupid and you need to fix yourself. You know?
I remember, I think in probably 2007, 2008, the very first tripod I had bought to shoot off of was like through Cabela's or Brownells. It was this Hunter's tripod, and it was probably $80, and it was this plastic janky thing.
Yes.
And I was taking that to try to use it for deployment. I was like, I want to try to use this. And that's when we sort of had on the team, we kind of had an aha moment of, we should figure out a way to make tripods work. Now, it was horrible, and I was shooting a 14-inch 308 off of it, just getting my ass handed to me. But that's where we really learned how to shoot off a tripod, was just, you know, for all intents and purposes, it was just basically leaning up against a stick. It had no way to hold on to the rifle, but learn with the janky equipment and improve your skill set and your technique.
Yeah.
I started with an old school Manfrotto, a piece of PVC pipe, and some GI bedroll. Yeah. That was it, man.
I didn't have the PVC pipe. At Home Depot, they sell they're like, I don't know what the metal's like, sheet metal, where they will connect 4x4s at a perpendicular position. So it's got, you know, the ears that are folded up for the top 4x4, and then they got the ears that are folded down for the bottom 4x4. So you just take some tin snippers and you cut the two bottom ears off, and then you put your GI stuff on the, you know, your little foam padding on the inside, kind of bend those ears together, and then you JB weld your Manfrotto mount to the bottom, and you had more of a saddle type clamp, versus just the PVC pipe where your rifle's resting on it. You know, but I still very much appreciate the sling method. I don't use it as much. A lot of your tripods today, especially when you start spending the money or getting into the fancy ball heads and shit like that, like, you can get away without using it. And there's a time and a place for everything. And then there's a time and a place where it's just not feasible. You know, you don't have time to put your sling on. You have to get your rifle up and you have to take that shot. So for situations like that, I still think you need to be capable of having those good fundamentals to take a shot and feel comfortable without the sling. But at the same time, if you have time and it's a technique that is proven and works, why wouldn't you use it? You know,
absolutely.
Like, so I think it's very much.
Yeah, I still teach it all the time.
Yeah.
Of course, again, I know you've seen law enforcement guys. I get guys that show up with the old bog pod and watch that thing fall apart on the range in about 2 days.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see my original Manfrotto tripod in the corner that had the little trigger head on it.
Oh,
and I remember taking my Manners T4 stock to my gunsmith saying, here is a camera mount. I need you to bed this in the bottom of my rifle. And I used to clip into that Manfrotto ball head. That was my deployment. And I mean, it worked. It was unstable as shit, but it worked.
You were ahead of your time. Damn.
The progression.
Yeah, it's changed.
But yeah, there's a lot of skill involved. And, you know, I think there's got to be, I think part of vetting the instructor is looking at how they've progressed. I think that you can look at guys and you can see where they started, and, you know, let's take like a 5-year sample. If you take a instructor who's teaching, you know, sniper or precision rifle 5 years ago, and then you fast forward till now, if nothing has changed about that guy from then till now, he's probably not the instructor that you want to go with, because you should always be learning something new or understanding something different or better, you know?
Always.
So you take the class, it changed things for you guys. You know, I've heard that from multiple departments where, you know, the course is an eye opener, it's a game changer, you know, things are completely flipped up onside their head, you know, in terms of how the team, you know, applies techniques, but also how they train on a monthly basis. And now you're working for 88 Tactical.
Yes.
So are you mostly civilian, mostly law enforcement, or both?
It's split. I do both, but let's go back real quick to vetting the instructor.
Yeah.
Prior to your class, I had a really bad experience with a couple different former military guys.
Okay.
Like, they were just teaching shit that did not apply to anything we did.
Yeah.
Because it's all they knew, which is fine. I mean, did I learn some shooting things there? Yes. But the rest of it was all filler. Mm-hmm. Such as getting to learn your enemy. All right. I don't have that kind of time. That's not going to happen. Right. I mean, let's face it. I'm lucky if I get a picture of the guy.
Yeah.
So I literally watched the content you were putting out for probably 4 years before I reached out to you.
Okay.
And I was like, this guy gets it. This guy, yes, he's got a military background, but he gets what we do.
Yeah.
And you were very good at explaining the technical aspects of things. So yeah, I'm not that guy that's going to jump on somebody in 30 seconds. Like I said, it took me years to watch what you were doing and reach out to you.
So with that, I can't say that I wasn't there, because I was one of those guys. Like, I get out of the Marines and I already think that I'm like, I mean, I've been humbled already because I went to a civilian competition while I was still active duty and it's got my ass handed to me. So I knew that there was a lot of learning to do for my own personal shootings. But then on the law enforcement side, you know, I'm fresh out of the military. I'm trying to start this company, and I want to push the skill sets that I've learned to the cops, right? I don't see any cops in the 2012, 2013 timeframe. I don't see a lot of departments really focusing on shooting off a tripod or shooting from positional. All of it's prone. And I'm like, there's a market here and I want to fill it. You know, so when I first started offering this course, one, I had to do it like dirt fucking cheap just to get my name out there.
Sure. Yeah.
But then on the other side, like, all I knew was the military. The only thing I knew from cops was being arrested by them. So like, I wasn't on the right side of the fence, you know, like, so I was going through the information that I wanted to teach, and I wasn't including things like know your enemy and stuff like that, because I was trying to put myself in the mindset of being a cop. and what they would need to know. So the course was very heavy on setting up your rifle, learning the fundamentals, shooting from a tripod, shooting from different barricades, talking about movers. But that first course really opened my eyes, because I'm like, all these guys are shooting minutes of angle and second focal plane. Like, why? So then I got to dig into it. I'm like, okay, this makes sense, right? And then a lot of transition really happened when I got an opportunity to do some training with LA sheriffs, and just picking their brain and looking at, they say that I taught them so much, but I don't think they realized how much they taught me when it came to like being in the mindset of a law enforcement sniper. And that really helped me make a complete transition to like, oh, okay, like you got to take all this military shit and like throw it the fuck away, because a lot of it doesn't apply. Like we're sitting here talking about like engaging this target, engaging that target, but in reality, like the rules of engagement for a cop are so much different, like, yeah. And then, the gear that they're given, the second focal plane, the minutes of angle, what do cops need to know? What do they need to think about? What are the situations that they're going to be put into? So I wish I could say that I was just one day the light bulb turned on for me and I instantly had this amazing product to offer, but it took being similar to what you described, but knowing that I needed to improve to actually provide a service that was wanted by law enforcement, because they're
right.
Word of mouth is going to spread super quick. You either got what it takes or you don't,
Yes. And one of the things that I really appreciated is you've said this many times, you've never taught the same class twice.
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, I know a buddy of mine went through your class in California. I don't know. It's been 2 years ago now, I think.
Okay.
Here. And when we were talking about it, it was completely different than what you taught here. I mean, it was along the same lines, but some of the things were different, which was awesome.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I've never taught the same class twice, because it all depends on the students. Who's in the class? What's their skill level?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was awesome. So yeah.
So taking what you've experienced prior to the course, what you experienced in my course, and then after that, you land at 88 Tactical, and you've still got your law enforcement sniper gig. You're also teaching on the side now. Is there any other, like, when we talk about vetting the instructor specifically, is there any other class that you went to, or like videos that you watch? Like, if somebody else is watching this podcast or listening to it right now, what are some of the areas that you've looked for information and found it to be helpful, or it helped guide you in the right direction?
I try and look for somebody that is not a jack of all trades. If somebody tells me they teach everything, I'm pretty much out.
Yeah.
I want a specialty, right? That's what I'm looking for. I'm to the point in my career, I'm very selective about the training that I go to, because with everything I've got going on, my time is pretty valuable. I will tell you, I look for guys that have experience. I will look at reviews. I will even call the instructor and talk to him and have a conversation, see where we're at, make sure we're on the same page. At the same time, being able to teach and interact with students from all over the country allows me to get their experiences from other classes.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the name, but there's a company out there that's been around for about 30 years. All the guys in Minnesota hate it, because all they do is they shoot 100 yards prone and they kick the shit out of them physically all day long and tell them how wrong they are. I've been to that class.
So I might know who this is. Are you allowed to use a rear bag and bipods or no?
You can use a bipod to a degree, no rear bag. And yes,
I know who it
where
is.
the rear bag or where the bipods are gone. Yes.
Okay.
I know you know who I'm talking about.
I do, yeah.
And again, he's a friend of mine. Some of the things that there's other things that I do besides everything else we've talked about. I'm also the Region 4 rep, which the entire Midwest for the ASA. All right. So yeah, I got my hands in a lot of different things, but they don't learn anything. Now, the statistical side of things, the debrief side of things, are awesome in that class. I wish I had access to that information.
Yeah.
But as far as turning out a sniper that is going to be ready for deployment when they walk away from there, no.
Yeah.
We've taken over a lot of Minnesota because of that. And that's my goal. When you leave my class, I don't care where we start. I want you to be able to be deployable as soon as you get back to work. That's my goal.
So with that, one, I don't want to forget, but the debrief side of it, right? Every year they have an annual report of, engagements and stuff like that. And, I feel like the entire course shouldn't be dedicated to scenarios, but what I like to do is I'll bring in, a law enforcement sniper, somebody who's, got experience in that realm, and we'll have, a dedicated amount of time dedicated to, I said dedicated a lot, didn't I?
That's right. You're dedicated to that word.
We'll have a certain amount of time set aside for scenario-based decisions, right? And I wanted real situations to throw at these guys and then be able to tell them, like, this was a real situation and here's what happened and here's the litigation that stemmed off of it because of the decision that they made, but I would tell them that after they made their choice so that
right.
they could be free to make their own mind up on when it was time to engage. Should they engage? Should they not engage? Like, take the shot, don't take it. So I hit them up and I'm like, hey, you guys release this report every year. Here's what I'm looking for. Can you help me? And they're like, oh yeah, just buy the debriefs. And I'm like, okay. So I jump on there, enter my shit in, and like I get the hard copy in the mail. Dude, it was not what I was expecting at all. It was zero help. Zero. So a little disappointed in it on that end of the spectrum. But as far as like you talking about when the guys leave your course, you want them to be ready. So I've been playing this in my mind. I've been trying to be devil's advocate and looking at both sides. You could probably jump in here. I know you'll have an opinion, right? But still to this day, I have a basic law enforcement sniper course. And then I have an advanced, right? The basic course, because law enforcement guys' time is limited on how long they can be away from the job, how long you can pull them from that SWAT team and train them, right? You only have so much time before they're needed to be back with the team. So typically that time frame is somewhere in the ballpark of 5 days.
Yep.
So the reason that I am so heavily focused on a basic course and then an advanced is my thought process is I want them to be brilliant in the basics, which means, setting up the rifle, understanding their scope, knowing how to make dial adjustments, knowing how to hold, what the reticle means, if they're second focal plane, knowing what each magnification is going to do for them, moving target engagement, things like that. Like all of this stuff, that stuff is a lot to cram into a 5-day package when you're expecting a certain level of proficiency at the end. And the part that I'm struggling with is I see people who are like, come to our basic sniper. We're going to do 2 days of prone and then the rest of it's going to be from tripod. And I'm like, I just don't have confidence that they're ready for that yet. I mean,
I agree 100%.
so when you're talking about like the level of sniper that we're putting out there at the end of whatever distance course that we have, I'm putting my name on this bitch, and they got to be ready to go. And I don't feel comfortable sending guys out after 5 days saying, you're a basic sniper and I taught you how to shoot from a tripod. You're going to be great. Like,
no, and again, we'll talk about instructors. There's a certain group of instructors right now that think there should not be a basic and an advanced and that it's all together. I disagree. I run things very similar to what you just described. We do a basic course. I fit as much in there as I can, but the fundamentals are hammered on up until the last day.
Yeah.
Because I don't care what you do. If it's going to a tripod, if it's going to a barricade, those fundamentals carry over. It's not that I'm teaching you something new. I'm just teaching you a different way to rest your rifle, and those fundamentals still apply.
Yeah.
But we start day one, hit the range in the afternoon just so I can get an assessment of where everybody's at. We work our way out to the furthest we have is 450 yards. We'll work our way out there during the middle of the week. We do a night shoot midweek because everybody I've ever come in contact with trains during the day, but when are we getting deployed? It's at night.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what they're up against, what their equipment does or what it can't do. So we do that. By the end of the week, we're hitting moving targets. We'll touch on vehicle hides. We'll touch on urban hides. And luckily I have all the facilities up there to do that without going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I guess when I say I want them to be operational, they're not where they need to be, but they've got a good base. I guess I should say that they've got a good base to start. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to get to you here in a second. I want to hear what you say. So for our basic course, I mean, it's changed and it's grown and it's developed, and some of the structure that I put in place has been moved around, and like looking at like things that I value and like how to, again, thinking about what is the product that I want to release when this is over. So in the basic course, like I don't even touch on hides. Like I'm at the point now where, the first day is some classroom instruction, setting up your rifle, like making sure that you've done everything right. And that can take a long fucking time.
Oh yeah.
Make sure everybody's set up the right way so that we don't have to fuck with this shit later in the week. And, then we'll do some 100-yard drills. We'll do some zeroing. And then before you know it, day one's over. And then day two, now you're starting to talk in. Again, I kind of toned it down a little bit in terms of like, when we think about external ballistics and we're talking like, the density altitude is going to change your bullet flight, this much at 1,000 yards. But in reality, I think we're just starting to waste our breath a little bit when we're teaching cops who need to be experts inside 100 yards, so like, again, modifying and looking at what information are we presenting and is it relevant, right? So then, we talk about external ballistics, utilizing data, ballistic calculators. And then, we get into moving targets, and then we go back to the 100-yard line, and it's fundamentals. And then, now, that evening we're going to do moving targets, and then nighttime rolls around and we're going to start playing with, do you have night vision? Do you not have night vision? What's the difference going to be? What's your offset? What's it going to look like engaging targets that are illuminated? And this is a Tuesday,
right?
We went from 0 to like half a hero in 2 days. And, Wednesday, now we start hammering, okay, like we've done everything we needed to do up until this point. Wednesday morning, they get hit with, you have 60 seconds to pull your shit out of your car and engage this target with your name on it at, the 100-yard board. So it's more of like a deployment drill. And they're not getting dinged if they fail or if they don't make the time. They're still going to take the shot, but it really opens their eyes into how are their SOPs failing them?
Mhm.
You know, how do they store their gear? You know, why is their rifle not set where it's supposed to be? You know, like all of these things.
Yes.
So, you know, I don't think we get into actually shooting a distance target until Thursday, because it's more of like a, let's verify your data, let's verify your muzzle velocity, let's figure all of this out and make sure it's good. But we're going to be masters of the 100-yard universe, and
Right.
you will be capable of nighttime shooting, moving target engagement. You will know everything you need to know, and then we'll have this little bit of distance shooting set aside. You know, so that's kind of like where our basic course has evolved to. And then when we get into the advanced course, then we start playing with different things and, like, you know, pushing the limits of the shooter. But I feel like you got to build the foundation first. And that's why I've never really combined them, because
Right. Yeah.
feel right.
Yeah, you know, I also think that there's a big, not that people are just trying to get filler, but I think people sometimes put things in courses, specifically the sniper courses, because they think that it just needs to be in there because this is what we've always put in there and that's what should be in there. But, you know, I've always discussed, like with, you know, my old sniper leader, like the general orders and the SOPs and those things, that should be reserved for your unit, right? Me and us 5 guys who sit around and that's what we should train on. I don't see a lot of, not that it's not relevant, but I don't see a ton of value when I'm trying to take 5 days away, go spend time and money in a hotel and go train with this one unit, train with these guys over here, to kind of gloss over the generalities of litigations in federal court, right? Like I never saw a lot of value in it, but a lot of guys still put those in their classes because, well, it should be a part of the class. Well, I mean, should it, or have we just always done that?
Right.
You know, I think building the foundations of some of these guys, when you look at, I think my firearms instructor, my post firearm instructor class for just basic firearms, I think that was 2 weeks. It was like 80 hours in Alameda. When you look at a basic sniper class, it's 5 days, sometimes 4. Like, you don't
Right.
got time to fit that crap in there. Like, let's make these guys good mechanically sending rounds down range properly. And then if you got time, work on some of the longer stuff, right? But
Right.
make these guys perfect at doing what they need to do, which is being precision with their tools, and let their team, who are going to be more intimate with their SOPs, ROEs, and general orders, let them work on that. And
Absolutely.
that's kind of just always been my thoughts on it.
I think it's a good point, and you could probably hit on this a little bit more. But, you know, when I would bring in, you know, an outside guy, and he would be my top dog law enforcement guru, we'd sit there and we'd talk about these things with the students, and he would be asking them, like, what's
your SOP?
Well, not just SOPs, but he would ask them about, like, okay, you made this decision. Why? Tell me what led you to this decision. Did you have these red flags? Did you have this? Did you have that? And then his final question would be, and what's the political climate of your department? Because unfortunately that falls in there of knowing how your department will react to what decision you made. Like,
yeah. And I mean, like, it sounds stupid, but like, there's differences in, you know, department policies between, you can take a warning shot and some you can't. Like, I had 2 different departments where I had 2 different orders where I could or couldn't, just with other stuff. So the relevance to what your department is in that political climate is so important.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I think when you have all of these departments mixed together and everyone's got a different political, you know, background, a different climate, and then I haven't come across many that are still doing it this way, but I know that there's departments that are still pushing like a red light, green light, where somebody else has control of who is taking the shot. I know you're hanging your head right now because you know it still exists somewhere out there.
Yes.
Somebody is telling the sniper when to shoot and when not to.
Yes.
You know, so you've got all of these things to deal with. So again, like going back and saying, we're going to be masters of our own universe, and we're going to live in this world right here, and that's what we're going to focus on. But I just thought it was an interesting topic because I'll see, people who say, we're going to take you from 0 to tripod hero in 5 days. And it's like, it's questionable, right? And, I think it's kind of like for all the millennials out there, maybe they'll get this, or what are we on? Gen Z?
I think there's Zennials now.
Zennials?
I think that's the in-betweener.
But, like if you take your social media, for example, you can grow your social media organically, which is going to take you a while. You have to post things that people are interested in, got to use all the right tags and all this other bullshit, right? But you will eventually get there, and your base following will have more interaction with you because it's actually people who give a fuck what you're talking about. And that's kind of like where the basic sniper course is. But then you've got companies out there that, message you privately and say, we can get you 10,000 followers in a day. Just pay us $100, So now you have these 10,000 followers who don't give a fuck about what you talk about. They don't like your shit. So you could have 100,000 followers, but every photo has only got 25 likes on it. That should tell you right there that, you did it the wrong way, right? So people are wanting the fast track when in reality, you should be focused on what's the quality that you're getting back from it, and not so much like, how do we get from here to there as fast as possible? Because it doesn't seem like it's the answer for me.
I agree completely.
So with 88 Tactical, you guys are running a basic and advanced for cops?
Yes.
Are you structured in the same format?
For those two classes?
Yeah.
No, the advanced class is structured completely different.
No, I meant like your basic is more focused on just your fundamental base, and then your advanced is what skill sets?
So our advanced class, one of the things that I do with it, that again I've only seen one other place, is we'll do a ballistic gel shoot on the first day. And I know I was in the same boat when I started. People just handed me ammo and I shot it. I had no idea what it did. I want guys to know what their bullets are capable of, or why we talk about different bullet selection. Why, for example, the gold medal match performs like a full metal jacket. And I can tell you that till you're blue in the face. Now let's go watch it over penetrate. We shoot through commercial glass in that class. Every city, every little town I've been to has some kind of convenience store somewhere. Can you shoot through that with your ammo? Right. Yeah. We talk about barrier rounds. We get into all that. Then I kind of do the same thing with those guys. I do a skills assessment, make any adjustments that we need to make, whether it's to their actual fundamentals or to their rifle setup, whatever the case may be. And then we start getting into some tripod work. And I ease them into that by doing some barricade work, kind of dialing that in. Then we get into the tripod. And the rest of the week is spent off of a tripod. Even our night shoot is done off of a tripod. And that's everything we do for the entire week is off a tripod, whether that's vehicle hides, urban hides, moving targets, it's off a tripod. Yeah. So, yeah.
So every once in a while I'll post on our social media, like dude wearing a gas mask, and, we'll have people like, why the fuck's he wearing a gas mask? That's stupid. Like, you shouldn't be that close. I'm like, you have no idea.
Yes.
You have no idea.
Right.
So are you guys still training gas mask?
Yes. And that actually came about before you. However, we just all got gas masks in 2020 because of the riots. We didn't all have them before that. But when I went to the FBI sniper school back in 2012, their team had been out helping the locals. At that point, they didn't have radio communications. The locals decide they're going to start pumping gas into this house, and the wind's blowing right in these guys' face. So they're getting up and beating feet, getting the fuck out of there. And now they're useless, right? Yeah. So, oh yeah, I mean, it's an essential skill, absolute essential skill.
How is that FBI course?
It's basic.
Okay.
Of course it is.
I'm just curious. Like, I've only known a few people that ever go to it. And I think most people tell me like the highlight of their course is, I believe it's the FBI sniper school. They'll take them. Is it maybe the HRT? They'll take a live fire shot into a steel bullet trap in a real environment. And is that true?
We didn't do that, but I was over in Chicago when I went through it. So, but we had a tower that we shot out of, and
I mean, Chicago, nobody would even flinch if you guys shot out in town.
No, not at all. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, they simulated a window, put a target behind it, and we shot through that.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Awesome, man. So, I mean, outside of that, again, like our last episode was kind of just touching on how to vet your instructors. And I thought you brought some pretty good information, some points like, you know, watching and seeing what content people are putting out. Is it relevant? You know, there's still the aspect of looking at what people are teaching and how do you know, like, even if it seems like relevant to what you're doing. Like, I've been relating a lot of our stuff on the podcast to climbing because I've been doing a lot of rock climbing lately, and I've been into it for a really long time. But right now I'm getting into that point where I want to learn like different systems, different knots, and, all kinds of like different rope work. And, so I'm like watching all this shit on social media where these dudes are tying these anchors, they're tying these knots, they're tying different shit. And if I only watched that, I could be tying something that I have no idea what the pro and cons are of it, right? Because there's some pretty sick ass knots that people are tying out there, but all they do is show you how badass they are at tying it and that you can use it for something. They never tell you like, this is the downsides of it. This is where it could go wrong.
Oh, is your tensile strength your rope at 60%?
Right? Like you tie this specific knot, you don't know your tensile strength just went from like 22 down to 5, like
right.
Not safe for a fall outside of 5 feet or whatever, like, so I try to relate a lot of that to the rifle side and then vice versa to my climbing side, where I try not to get wrapped around a specific video that I might watch. I'll look at it, I'll remember the name, I'll write shit down, and then I'll go try to research it somewhere else and see if anybody's put literature out on it or if there's something out there that would help me, because I feel like a lot of that gets lost when we're looking at, and I'm guilty of it too. I'll put out advertisements or videos and things like that where there's a certain, I guess, end state that I'm looking for. Like maybe I want more people to sign up for a class or this or that. It might not be meant as a video that is necessarily 100% instructional. It might be 50-50.
Yeah.
Like I want a little bit of instruction in here, but I'm trying to get people to sign up for the training. So how do I make it look, and precision rifle is boring as shit. So it's hard to make everything look sexy, but again, like, I still think there's a long way to go for some of these future students to actually be able to pick out who they would like to train with. And
that brings up a good question of like, because you're in that world now where you see all the different departments, you see their training structures, you get to see a lot of sort of what the climate is for, I guess, current law enforcement. And are you seeing a shift towards people really trying to vet their instructors, people really reaching out to newer classes, newer instructors? Or is it like it was for me 15 years ago, where it's just a fucking echo chamber of people just getting the same information and going same classes with pockets of, you know, innovative departments?
It's a little bit of both. Most of the guys that I deal with, either they will email me or call me before class and kind of go, hey, what are we getting into? Or whoever's in charge of their training will get a hold of me. If not, they'll get a hold of my training manager and want a copy of our outline for the course. What are we teaching? What are we putting out? Which I have no problem giving that up. If you want to see what we're doing, here it is. I'm not going to hide anything from you. I don't have any special sauce that I'm trying to keep a secret. I'm sure back in when you were on board, just like when I started, everything was a secret in the sniper world. Nobody wanted to talk. Well, I know this, but I'm not going to tell you, because if you know this, then now I'm not valuable. What? How about we just make the entire team better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, how about we make the community better? And there's still that in the community. Guys don't want to talk. I don't get it. It's like
now everybody's talking now, but now everybody's changing words to make it sound like it's something different than what it still is.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Back to what you brought up about instructors. I've fallen for that. Myself and one of the other guys from 88 went to a recce carbine course by a very highly recognized instructor. He came recommended to us. I will tell you, that was the biggest waste of money and time that I've ever seen in my life.
Is that how you pronounce it? I thought it was Reese.
No. So hold on. We got the garage door open, and we got the good old green garbage man driving past us. So no, it is recce.
Okay.
I hear people use it a lot, and I see rifles that are branded no recce rifle now.
Oh know? Yeah, right.
It's super buzzwordy, and I have no idea what it is.
You know, I think there's probably 75% of the population doesn't know what the recce means. They see that word and they see somebody cool holding a rifle, and they're like, oh shit, you know, like,
yes.
So yeah, I mean, it's an easy trap to fall into because people will recommend you, and that, you know, I was thinking about this when it comes to like post certification. I've given up on post certification. There was a time where so many departments were like, Tyler, can you get post certified? Like, we'd love for your class to be post certified. I'm like, let me look into it. So I start looking into it, and like, you know, kind of the downside is, you know, as an entrepreneur, I'm kind of limited on what I'm allowed to charge. But then on the other side, even when I was like, okay, let's approach this and see where it goes, I make a phone call and I'm like talking to the California Post office, and flat out dude tells me on the phone, like, look, there's no other course like yours in California, but there are law enforcement guys and retired law enforcement guys who could use the money more than you. So we're not going to be able to post certify you. And I'm like, what? That makes no sense.
Wow.
So I'm basically blackballed because I'm not a cop of being a post certified course, right? Okay. So in a way, like, post certification is almost like a good old boy network to me. And maybe it's not that way in every state, but I kind of feel like it's that inbreeding where, like, you're not a cop, or we already have this course, so we don't need another course that is the same, you know, where, you know, the concept that we all kind of think about is like, you could come to Tyler's Max Ordinate Advanced Sniper course, and you could get all this sick ass training, and then you could go to KP's 88 Tactical fucking Advanced Sniper course, and we might overlap in some areas, but he might cover something completely different. You know, like, we don't do the ballistic gel testing anymore. That's just one area right there where they would get something out of your course that they're not getting from mine, right? So you can learn something from all of these good courses that you can go to. And again, like, I feel like some of the post networks are just that good old boy, let's continue with the shit.
Well, and as you said, there's a lot of inbreeding there, because you get a lot of those guys that, well, now they're an instructor, or they're this, or they're that. So they don't go on and continue to learn. They don't continue to be that student, and they don't know what they don't know. So they keep putting out the same shit for 20 years.
Yeah.
I see it around here all the time, and it blows my mind. Absolutely just blows my mind. So
a couple of the ones that I see, kind of like we were talking about earlier, is now that we're sharing information, then we go and we look at, well, how can we change the name to it so that we can make it sound different? Or how can we like talk shit about it and downgrade it so that we can tell people there's no reason to train it anymore? One of those is using the sling when you're shooting from a tripod or something like that, strapping a sling into your belt and getting that extra stability. Like, it's a skill set. And just because you've been taught the skill set doesn't mean that you have to use it all the time, right? It's just a tool in the toolbox. For a while, I saw the same thing where, like, our law enforcement courses, and I don't remember if we had taught it during your course or not, but start incorporating a tripod as a rear support. And
yes.
Okay, so like utilizing the rear support. So we started doing that, and it was something I learned on the civilian side. And then I was like, well, we should teach it in the sniper side. Like, there's no reason not to teach it. It's a skill set. It's a tool that can be used. It's not something that we're going to rely on, but it's going to be a tool that we incorporate. And people would rag on it. Like, there's no way a military or law enforcement guy is ever going to be able to use that skill. And it's like, saying he will never be able to do that is a very strong word. But if he could, why wouldn't he?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you got the inbreeding, you got the good old boy networks, and then you got, like, how can we tear down skill sets because we don't teach it and direct you somewhere else? I think the latest one, I think you already said it, actually. There is no basic or advanced anymore. We're just blending them, and there is now the law enforcement sniper, and it's like, okay, all right, I see what you did there.
Well, and one of the things now, I think, which drives me crazy, is there's this push to talk about, some of the instructors love to talk about how bad and how poorly trained and how just rudimentary, like, law enforcement training is, right? But a lot of these guys don't understand that they're the other part of the law enforcement training, which is the litigations, the court cases, and all this other stuff that has to go into it, and the other things that they have to deal with. And so I always see this big push of this big social media thing about how, cops are so poorly trained, and to a point, a lot of them are, but there's this huge generality of how piss poor cops are trained in general, and how, like, I guess the standards are so low, but they don't see the whole other side of it, which is all this other part that has to go in the training to, you're not putting bullets on targets, they're human beings in that case. So, social media has this way, and a lot of these instructors have a way of just picking something to really start, making it their selling point for their classes, whether it's based in reality or not. They can structure it that, so if I continue to say this enough and use large words or change the way it sounds, I can drive traffic to my classes. And it goes back to whether it's a technique or people, if you can continue to talk disparagingly about a certain technique or persons and say, but Tim, take my course, it's better, you can drive traffic.
Yeah.
Some clickbait shit, man.
Very much so.
It's like newspapers.
Right.
You get those Google articles and you, like, read the heheadline, you're like, oh shit, let me read that. And then it's
not it.
Fuck, I just wasted
Right.
3 minutes of my life right there.
Yeah. I don't do a lot of social media. Our mobile training team has some. I'll be honest with you, I've relied on word of mouth.
Yeah.
And is that the right way? Hell, I don't know. But I would rather somebody come see me because of a previous student than some shit they saw on the internet. You know?
I mean, I think it's kind of a product of your environment. Not saying that like Nebraska isn't a lot of people, but depending on who you're training, and you guys are more injected onto the law enforcement side, you know, you're a cop, and, you know, I think word of mouth is a really good method. Every once in a while it can fail you, kind of like you said. You know, what's today? Today, Tuesday? Today's Tuesday. So last Friday, I submitted a bid for a contract for San Diego County Sheriffs, and it's for aerial platform training. And, you know, I've been involved in government contracts before, so I know when a contract is written to try and favor somebody specific,
right?
You know, it kind of falls into that like word of mouth. Like, I can read this contract and know that somebody on that team or in that department wanted this company, but they didn't know that I have the same ability and I'm going to try and win the same thing. But you can read things like that, you know, and that's, you know, unfortunately there's certain dollar amounts that will restrict you from just hiring somebody, but that's, you know, good on that company that I'm now competing against for having the word of mouth to be requested in that manner, you know. So I think word of mouth has definitely got its place. It's probably one of the more reliable methods, you know, in terms of, you know, the social media side just being, you know, all this fluff. How do you weed through all of the bullshit to find exactly what it is that you're getting, you know?
Right.
I saw an advertisement for scoped carbine, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, this looks cool. And as I dig in deeper, the farthest that they're going to shoot is like, you know, 100 meters. And I'm like, okay, like, but it's not advertised because that's kind of like, that's not very fun. You know, who wants to shoot at 100 meters with a scoped gas gun? But, you know, it is what it is. You know, people are going to go and they're going to learn some stuff. And so again, there's a whole crazy vetting process to this. And I don't know. I still don't know what the solution is. I know in the past there's been companies who've tried to come out and put together reputable groups. And I think eventually it just falls by the wayside, you know, like who's paying for it?
Yeah.
And,
so we talk about vetting. You said that like half your classes are at 88 taps. So it's kind of a good split between law enforcement, military.
No, it's mainly law enforcement. It's very rare I get a military guy. Yeah.
The civilian classes, are they, you see a different sort of vetting, like the people reaching out than say the law enforcement guys? Is it a complete different, I mean, do they even care? Do they just see it and I want to take the class? Or is it just are people reaching out in the same way, like, hey, can I see your stuff? What are you really doing?
So the civilian side here is a whole different animal. Where, like, Tyler, you're getting a lot of people that want to do PRS shit, shoot competitions.
Yeah.
I get the guy that wants to go on the $10,000 elk hunt, or whatever the case may be there. I do get a few guys that eventually want to break into doing some competition. But generally it's just that guy that wants to come out, learn more about his rifle, its capabilities, things like that. That's pretty much the civilian side for us.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say we're split probably maybe 70-30. 70% are looking to get into competing or get better at competing. And then 30% is the guys who are, you know, going on a hunt. They want to take the high angle course, so they want private high angle instruction. They want to tromp through the mountains, learn how to shoot from their tripod. And, you know, So yeah, I'd say, but the population on this side of the country is pretty extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, it's starting to look like Asia around here. Another subject I was going to talk about was, I forget why this popped up in my brain, but thinking about things being pushed or promoted, or like, we're going to teach you this and here's why it's better, you know. And I had this question because I'm really big on the ballistic arc software for ballistic solvers. I like the format. I like the ease of usability. I like the features that they come out with. And then, you know, you've got applied ballistics, and you've got what is it, Hornady 4DOF now, and you've got all these other ballistic calculators that come out. You got Straylock, which, if you guys didn't know, I'm pretty sure Straylock is banned in the United States right now because it was developed by a Russian.
I did not know that.
Now on the cannot sell to the United States list.
Okay.
So, but you got all these different ballistic calculators, and you know, at the heart of the calculator is the engine, right? What calculates the trajectory for you. And all of these calculators ask you for very similar information. You've got your atmospheric data, what bullet you're shooting, what profile you're using, and how fast is it moving, right?
Yep.
You put all that information in, and each calculator, as long as every piece of information is the same, every calculator is going to give you damn near the same answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hornady 4DOF came out, and I didn't really know at the time what DOF was. So I hit up my buddy Joe Baker at Geoballistics. I'm like, bro, you got to teach me this sorcery that is DOF. What is a 4DOF? And he starts talking about like degrees of freedom and all of this stuff. So now I'm starting to like get into this rabbit hole. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's more than 4, right? There's just a calculator that's doing 4 of them. Whereas Straylock, ballistic arc, applied ballistics, they're only doing 3. And you're like, okay, so this one's got to be like so much better, right? So I take 2 calculators, 4DOF and 3DOF, put in the exact same information, and I put the target at, I think, like 1500, which for the 6.5 bullet was just inside the subsonic range. They were 0.03 mils different from each other. So there's not a huge difference in terms of a 3DOF or a 4DOF and how much accuracy you're getting from this thing. I mean, you can't make that 0.03 mil adjustment on your scope, you know? So now you're looking at it and you're like, okay, so there's not much of a difference. And then you hear people talking about like, well, 4DOF is the only way to go, and here's how you're going to true your rifle, and this is that. And, you know, like, okay, if we're talking about long range, maybe competition, you know, we start to adjust our ballistic coefficient to actually reflect the impacts that we're getting downrange. Like, I think all of that's great, and it's really interesting stuff to learn about. But then when I start seeing that shit in law enforcement classes, or in classes where you're not shooting past 500 or 600 meters, why are we teaching this? Like, this is a gimmick. You're teaching things that aren't relative to what is really important in this arena that we're training in, you know, like.
Yeah. Are you using a preferred software? Like, what's your take on that? Because as far as I would understand or know, I would have to assume that they're all using the same algorithm that's put in. I don't think the guys are writing their own algorithmic code.
A lot of them are using JBM ballistics.
Yeah. And they're all it's all the same solution that just goes into their app. So, I mean, what are you using, and what are your thoughts on those like specific ballistic calculators? Because I wasn't using them when I was in that setting. I had 6 cards for different temps, and I had to pull one out when I deployed. Like, that's what I did.
Yep. Ever since Tyler's class, I've been using geoballistics.
Yeah, God, are we all? Jesus.
Well, one of the things I like about it is, depending on where I'm at, whether that's a rural setting or whether I'm on a rooftop doing Overwatch, I can plop my range card right there.
Yeah.
You know, there's no more of this drawing shit out by hand and all that stuff. I've got it right here. And it tells me exactly what I need to make that shot. For us, we're a political hotbed. Every 4 years, we get inundated with all this bullshit. So we're pretty much it when people come to town as far as their Overwatch, things like that. So I want to make sure that my guys are dead on for what they need rather than, well, let's guess it. And we've gone out and sat on a rooftop and we've used geoballistics or ballistics arc, and we've used a laser rangefinder. I'm usually within a yard of difference.
Yeah.
If that.
For the map feature, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love
that thing.
I mean, that's pretty cool. And not just for that, but for like I would say for competition, but you know, just having that ability, if I'm out in the desert and I want to set up some targets, it's a fantastic feature for that.
Right.
No, it works out really well. There's another software program out there right now. And I mean, after being out of the military for 9 years before I got thrust back into it, I mean, some things change, other things remain the same. And what's changed is the amount of technology that has been incorporated into some of the like scout, sniper, reconnaissance type stuff in terms of like software. Right now, geoballistics is it's privately owned. I think it's owned by Vortex now, but it's still an open to the public type deal. But there's another program, and I won't get into too many details because it's kind of only for military law enforcement. But have you guys played with ATAC at all?
I have not. I've heard a little bit about it, but I've not played with it.
So it is a pretty interesting program. And, you know, the law enforcement side has the ability to integrate onto an ATAC software. It looks like it works best on Android type phones or Android systems. I put it on an iPhone and it's trash for an iPhone, but on an Android system, my goodness, the amount of communication and situational awareness and things that you can do on that program inside a team or a command element trying to communicate with the team, it's insane. I mean, you might want to check that out, man.
Yeah, definitely.
So
definitely.
Awesome, buddy. Well, I never know how long we're actually talking. I always rely on Jeff to tell me.
Yeah, and I don't have my clock in the corner there. So,
but before we go, though, I got 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
I know you had a lot of input on that rock chassis.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that on a law enforcement perspective?
So the idea behind the chassis was to be as modular as possible in terms of what you could do with it and who it would fit. Who could you set it up for? So I did put together a law enforcement version of some of my own personal stuff. So I have a Falcor action, and then I have a 14.5-inch 308 barrel, and it fits perfectly on the shortened version of the rock chassis. So if you're not familiar with the rock chassis, there's an extended forend, and then there's a shortened one. I think we're going to get
trash truck.
He's finally coming by to pick up your stuff.
Pick up my recyclables.
It's only 1:45 in the afternoon.
They spread it out throughout the entire day. The last one will be at like 6.
Perfect.
Sounds like my neighborhood.
They picked up the first one at 7 this morning.
Wow.
So back to the chassis. You know, the forend, you can shorten it by 6 inches, and the forend will only be 12 inches long. So you have a shorty barrel or something that's more, you know, plays nicer with law enforcement guys. You don't need a 26-inch barrel for a law enforcement sniper rifle.
No.
So the forend of the chassis is modular. It could be broken down and, shortened to the length that you need it. There is a separate top rail that we have developed that has pick rail built into it. So now you can mount your night vision on top. And then when you start looking towards the rear of the rifle, the buttstock, it all screws in with an AR style, screw and in a castle nut. So if you wanted to put a folding adapter on there, whether it's a Falcor folding adapter, it's MDT, it's, XLR, pick one. If it's an AR style folder, Law Tactical is another one. You can put that on there, and now you've got your 14.5-inch barrel, or, I know some departments running 12-inch barrels, plus your 8-inch action. You fold your stock, and now you've got your little 20-inch package that can be concealed a lot easier, strapped inside or onto a smaller pack. So I think it has a lot of features that would play well with law enforcement. You could, if you wanted to, again, depends on how crazy you want to get with it, but could you add weights to a law enforcement gun? You could. It's not going to be the most amazing system to
Tyler adds weight to everything. And
I know
when I buy a rifle from Tyler, I have to remove 20 pounds of weight off of it. I have a box.
You got to train like you
weights.
fight. You got to train like you fight, bro. Where am I fighting at these days? I'm fighting on the Square Bay competition arena.
Yeah.
So a lot of my rifles are set up the same way. My 223 doesn't need weight. But my 223 gun weighs the exact same as my other rifle.
Well, and it's funny because I remember years back when I was buying stocks from Macmillan, and the big thing was super light carbon fiber, sniper fill this on this end, and it was a whole different arena where I was like, I got to get this rifle at like 11 pounds or whatever it was.
Right. Yeah.
It's really cool to see the evolution of just rifles in general, but in that precision world, where the only guys running these super heavy rifles was like when I was shooting silhouette or F-class or something. Like if I was in the field, man, I needed this super lightweight rifle. It was
right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I would never have thought to, use a chassis as my deployment gun.
So people have said that before, like, I don't know if they do it to see what I'll do or they're just speaking their minds, but I'll have my PRS rifle that weighs, I think it's like 22 pounds right now. And look, I was in the same boat a long time ago where something new, like, hey, I'm going to add weight to my rifle, it would come out and I'd be like, that is the stupidest thing, right? And then, like, if you take yourself and you pull yourself out of that box for a second and you try to comprehend, like, why are we doing this? How is it going to benefit me? Like, when you get into the competition side, you start looking at, like, what are all the advantages that I could set myself up with, and why would I not use them? Like, I see people all the time on, certain competition stages where it says, you can use any gear that you want. And they'll run up there with the shittiest bag that they can and shoot off of it. They don't have, the little puff pillow or anything to support their elbow. And, I'll be like, why didn't you use the pillow? And they're like, oh, because I just don't feel manly. I'm like, nobody cares how manly you felt. It's about hitting targets in this game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, why wouldn't you use every advantage? But I was on that boat where I would just discount things. I would be like, I didn't think of it, so it's not important.
Yeah.
Right. But I had to grow and develop as a person, and as a person that was going to live inside the precision rifle realm of trying things out before I just discounted them. The lightweight thing to the heavyweight thing, you've got all different kinds of uses nowadays. And there was a point in time where somebody was like, you wouldn't carry that rifle on a field match. So that very next month, I went to a field match where we're hiking like 5-6 miles a day, and I got that same fucking rifle just to show, like, yo, yes, I will. Like, and I have done so every single year since then, because I want people to see that, yes, it's a heavy rifle, but it is still capable of being carried and taken out into the field if I'm capable.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Now, as far as the sniper adventure challenge goes, no, not a chance.
No,
not a chance. It will break
That's a different beast.
Oh, yeah. It will break me the fuck off. So we'll go back to that 8-pound rifle just because, I mean, that fits the need right there. So, yeah, I mean.
But, yeah, back to the original question. You know, again, like, you know, the mission drives the gear. I think the rock chassis is really cool as far as just looking at it and thinking of all the different places I can put it in what I'm going to use it for. Like I can take one rifle, and depending upon the day, I can outfit it differently. I can have one rifle that I can have different calibers, different style of chassis on the same chassis, same action inside of 30 minutes, which I think is awesome.
That was one of the things that really impressed me. I put a 6.5 Creedmoor barrel on it. When things got a little tight during COVID, I had a 308 barrel spun up. I swapped that thing out in my garage in 20 minutes, went out and had the same point of aim, point of impact.
Yeah.
At 100 yards. I was like, holy shit. Yeah. That was awesome. But I haven't got to play with the chassis yet. That's why I was curious.
Yeah. So the chassis is, again, it's trying to fit everybody's needs into one package. Doesn't matter if it's military, law enforcement. I mean, if you strip it all the way down, you take the steel bar out of the middle, you take all the weights off of it, and you just run it like a regular chassis. I know that Russ is running that chassis for the NRL Hunter match right now, and it comes in, I think, with all things considered, like bipods, everything. I think it's like 15 pounds. I mean, so it's it's not a super light rifle, but it's definitely more in that manageable realm.
Gotcha.
Chop his barrel down to, 14, 12, 16 inches, he'd lose more weight. But yeah, I mean, that was the idea behind it. How can we make something that would be what anybody wants it to be?
Nice.
So what's the second question?
So you mentioned at the beginning about the Marine Corps going to 6.5 Creedmoor. With all of the LE guys that you work with, where are you seeing that going in the LE community?
The only department I have seen actually field a 6.5 is Maricopa down in Arizona, the sheriff's department. I know that they had 1 or 2 rifles, and they were doing a lot of ballistic testing on them to see what their capabilities were, what the penetration level was. Outside of that, I haven't seen anybody even flirting with the idea. I mean, you got your lower level guys talking about it, but it doesn't seem like it ever leaves that lower level circle of,
right.
Man, I really wish we had a 6.5 Creedmoor, like, I think departments need to sit down and actually look at like what they're trying to achieve with a different caliber. Like, what do you get out of 308? And maybe you can answer this question. What do you get out of 308?
I get a reliable 30 caliber bullet that has been tried and true. Realistically, and I know you touched on, our wheelhouse being 100 yards and in. If you look at out here where we're at, Nebraska, Minnesota, you better be comfortable at 300 yards and in.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, our qualification course for my team, they're required to do headshots at 300 yards. That's got to be their level of proficiency. To me, at that point, the wind's coming into play, all these other things. So I know they know how to do what they're doing. Now, I think in our case, like I said earlier, we do a lot of political stuff, a lot of Overwatch. If I go out to our airport where we spend a lot of time, I'm looking at 900 to 1,000 yards. to me, that's where that 6.5 would come into play, because they're not going to give me, a 300 Norma or a 300 Win Mag or any of those things. And I definitely don't want to replace my 30 cal with a 300 Norma or a 300 Win Mag for a daily operation. I don't see that. And they're not going to buy me, a $12,000 multi-caliber system. So, but I think, I think 300 in, you can't go wrong with a 308, but I think you have more versatility when you step up to that 6.5.
I agree. I mean, I think the versatility you're talking about, the wind drift is less, the recoil is less, but the one thing that's, it's less, but it's not a considerable amount, is, again, taking into consideration the projectile, right? And energy is mass times velocity. So if you have the right selection of a projectile and you got the right speed to go with it, when we're talking like distance engagement, you're not losing that much power.
No.
From 6.5 to 30 cal.
Well, and I guess that would be sort of a two-parter, right? I know that when departments all shot 40, because that's what the FBI shot, and that was the handgun cartridge, right? And it took me and our range cadre months and months and months of history and tradition. What other departments? Here's the ballistics. Here's all these studies. Here, Chief, can you sign off on us going to 9mm? With the 308, you have that other departments' history and tradition. So when you go to federal court, you'd be like, here's the gold standard. This is why we're using it. And it's tough to sell to, it's a tough sell when you're like, hey, this is why did you use the 6.5? Well, we just thought we'd try it out. Well, sir, you're guilty, kind of thing. So, right. If there's, I think it's going to be a slow ramp up, but I think it'll kind of do this, right? Like one department, Maricopa, another one, and you'll get a couple more to where I think everybody will be like, oh, people are starting to use it. Now we can all switch. But what's the bullet selection? Like, are you guys still using, I know when I was deploying, I was shooting 168 SMKs, right?
Right.
Gold medal match. But then we had, then I had a bonded round, on my little scabbard on the side. Like, what's the bullet selection options for 6.5 for your mission, what you want to do between, I'm going to assume you're not shooting match anymore like we were.
No. More day tap.
And are you still using a bonded round, and are those available in 6.5?
Yes. So Hornady makes a Hornady tap round in 6.5.
Okay.
147 grain. In their bonded round, they make a 140 grain GMX, which is their barrier round. Nosler's making an AccuBond in the 6.5 now. The only problem is they're the only ones you can get it from, and as we all know, their ammunition is not cheap. So yeah, there's things out there that are coming on the market. I know in the beginning, that was the thing, was there's not a specific LE round for that, or there's not a barrier round. Well, we're there. I only know of a couple agencies using 6.5, McKinney down in Texas, and then Douglas County over in Nebraska. They're using 6.5. Those are the only two that I'm aware of.
I would say eventually you will see it. I think it's inevitable that you'll see it. I think the benefits are there, especially when it comes to taking longer shots, or, the skill or quality of the guy. Like 6.5 is just going to be overall easier for your average basic sniper to handle. I think where the delay is going to be is when we talk about, one, the power that it has, but two, what's the penetration look like, right? And then when you take that and you have your first incident where there's a over penetration problem, or something goes wrong, then they're gonna all look at it and say, like, guilty, you should have stayed with the 308,
right.
not knowing whether or not that 308 would have done the same thing, you know, and then.
And I honestly, I think it's just going to take people like yourself to, in many departments, to just sit down and be like, I'm going to dig my heels in on this. So I'm going to dedicate my time to give the package to my department. And I'm going to continue to do it until finally they go, okay, let's try it. And then more and more, but it's going to take a lot of your effort and guys like you to make that change happen. Because like, as we know, like going from 40 to 9 was a decade long process.
Right.
Well, it's going to be the same thing, except now we have, it's not like there was all these options and most people were using 40. There was only one option. Only people are only using 308. And now you're trying to change that. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be a lot more work, but it's going to take guys like you to really dig your heels and be like, no, this is what we're doing. This is why. And I'm going to have to spend my time convincing the brass and the city manager that this is what we're going to do.
I think the military moving to it is going to speed that train up a little bit.
Right.
And then I don't know if Hornady is finished or if they're still doing, but you know, Hornady was able to get their 168 grain, and, you know, they're different projectiles, they're tap rounds. They were able to get that injected into law enforcement because they dumped a bunch of money into all the ballistic testing behind it.
Right.
And having Hornady jump in and do all of that testing on the 6.5 is going to help with that changeover.
Right. Which they've done. I've talked to those guys out there quite a bit about it. So yeah. I'm just kind of curious to see where it goes.
I think it'll be a great change. I think it'll be worth it. I think it'll enhance guys in every way. And I really don't see a negative side to it. I mean, it'll do everything the 308 will do. So,
absolutely. And then some.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, you got any save rounds? Got anything shout outs you want to give? Anything?
No, brother. Seriously though, if you're ever around and you want to come out for a class and give me some feedback, I'd appreciate it. So
I need to come out and sharpen up my skills, dude.
I'm sure you're on the range enough. Come on.
You would like to think so. You would like to think so.
Trust me. I get it.
There's a couple things. One, there's very little time for me to shoot when I'm having to watch everybody else shoot.
Yep.
And two, I now remember how fucking hard it is to go and shoot inside the confines of the military. I mean, checking out my rifle is easy, but getting ammunition for said rifle is not that easy.
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, outside of that, you know, while I'm home, I get to practice, I get to go compete, stuff like that. My biggest fear is always just dropping off or becoming so rusty that I get mad at myself. So what I did is, for my house, you know, on the other side of the world, unfortunately, it's a no gun country. So the only rifle I'm allowed to have is on the military base. You know, so I bought an airsoft rifle. And
there you go.
It is a replica of a real gun. I mean, the bolt cycles, I put a real scope on this thing. I don't shoot it. It's not like I'm out there shooting airsoft pellets at 25 yards trying to, you know, shoot a half MOA group. I mainly just got it because it feels and weighs like a real gun. So I'm able to go out and dry fire and practice and do all that stuff with a fake rifle.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that is, you know, so for people who say like, oh, I don't get to go to the range enough, neither do I. But here I am trying to find a way, you know. So
I know the neighbors all think I'm insane because I dry fire in my garage all the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you. In a week course, I'm lucky if I shoot 40 rounds.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, no, I dry fire all the time. Absolutely.
What are you saying?
Yeah, you have to. Like, you know, I'll be out here in the garage dry firing constantly, but Then I built a little air rifle so I can go in my backyard and just get some actual trigger time, just so I can do it and involve the kids. So
Right.
I can still spend time with the family, do what I need to do, but also get some reps in. And, balancing, for me, it's balancing that toddler and family life with getting the reps I need to get in.
Sure.
Much less actually getting out to the range to go, shoot a rifle is almost impossible these days. So
I hear you.
If you're serious about your craft, you find ways to make it work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're in Nebraska.
Can't you just shoot out your window?
Shouldn't you have a back porch? You just go out there in your undies and pop a few off?
Just send some over the cows?
Actually, I live in town. I haven't got my wife convinced to move out in the country yet. Yeah.
Give her a couple years. She'll be on board, maybe. I don't know. I remember driving through that area to get to you guys, driving through Nebraska, driving through Iowa. My God, I was on the verge of suicide after that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That
was back when you had that Raper van, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, dude.
I missed that van.
Yeah, dude, that van was pimp. But dude, just driving through there, like
just you and Daisy,
just miles and miles of corn. And I think their range that we trained on was the only fucking hill in all of Nebraska, or whatever state we're in, dude. Like, you're kind of like on the top of this hill, and he said that you got 450 yards, so you can shoot out 450, and you're kind of shooting over a little valley to another hill, and there's a tree line out there, and like that was it. That was the max elevation gain that you got in the whole damn area.
Pretty flat out there.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That was a good place, though. I mean, we got creative with movers. So at the time, I don't know if you guys got a actual moving target system. I ended up buying one so that we have something that's just automated now. But they have the HESCO barriers that me and you were talking about buying for our pistol area.
Yeah.
So they got these HESCOs all stacked up. They got this really nice 100-yard range. So we're on this side of it. And over here, they got HESCO, and we got dudes behind it holding sticks up, like walking back and forth. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, man.
Absolutely. No, we do have a moving target system now. So, yeah.
Yeah. Forever. Robots putting people out of work, man.
Yeah, right.
Awesome, bro. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time out, sitting down with us, and just shooting the shit, man. We didn't have an agenda for today. It was just to talk, catch up, and get some outside opinions. And, I'm sure that our listeners will appreciate somebody else's talking shit just outside of me and you.
Yeah, and it's really refreshing. I like hearing where the current state of law enforcement snipers are at from somebody that's not just taking one of our classes, like actually in that world, and to kind of see where you guys are at. It's kind of cool to see.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me. So definitely.
All right, brother. Well, it was good chatting with you, and I'll catch up with you later.
All right, brother. Take care. Be safe.
See you, man.
Bye. Bye.
See you. All right, so we're back. That was a good conversation. Friend of mine, KP Robinson, out in the Nebraska area. They call those flyover states, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I ended up driving there, which is how I found out you're supposed to fly over.
You should have flew over and drove back.
It was a hard day. But no, it was a good time out there. It was good to be in that environment with Nebraska and Iowa and some of that surrounding area, and be able to influence their way forward. But as you heard, like, I mean, where they were, and then taking my class, and then how he has taken it and just continued to, that's kind of what it's for, man. Like, even in the civilian side, I don't think you can expect, or you shouldn't be expecting, to go to these classes, especially as a civilian, where it's like, ours are a 3-day package.
Mm-hmm.
So you go Saturday, Sunday, Monday. If you take all 3 days, you should not be walking away from that thinking you're going to be the baddest motherfucker. Like,
No, but it's really
Your foundation
cool.
is built.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see, like, whether it's him, whether it's Guy, whether it's my old sniper leader Dan, to see them come to the classes and then take that as a base and really just expand on it, and really get even better after, I think is really a testament to the training. But what I like is, to me, I think it shows the dedication to the people in this sport, or in this, I don't want to say sport, whether it's their sport or this career or hobby or whatever it is, the dedication that they put into it, long term, right? Like we talk about echo chambers, they're not just sitting there in this echo chamber like, this is how I've always hunted coyotes, and this is what I do, this is how I've always been on the sniper team, or I've always competed. Go out and learn, and then be like, oh, this is what Tyler taught me, let me continue to take what he taught me and expand my own thoughts into it, and see what I can do to make it even better for myself, which I just think is awesome.
100%, man. Yeah. And it's crazy to think that somebody would spend that much money. I mean, it's not cheap. And I'm not saying that we're expensive. I'm saying that, like, anytime you're going to spend X amount of money on something and then not use it after, is a waste.
Now, having said that, you're always going to have people, and I'm guilty of it too, that will just take a class because it's sort of our vacation.
Maybe
to go do something fun, and whether it's whatever it is, but you'll always have those. But the majority of people that are spending that much money for the class, not even the money, but just the time and energy to go do that, will typically continue to expand on the information that they get.
I think maybe I'm referencing more of like what your expectations should be when you leave the class. You should expect that you're another level up, but you're not at the top.
It's kind of like, we used to say that when you graduate a police academy, you're not ready to be a cop. When you graduate the police academy, you're ready to enter field training. Right. And when you graduate field training, you're just ready to be on your own for a year. You're still not capable of actually being on your own. Right. Like there's levels to each progression. And going to the MOA class, I think, is the first, and then you can kind of continue to build on it from there.
Definitely. Well, I mean, I don't really have anything laid out for today. It was just focused on chatting with him, kind of capping on last week's conversation. And I had pulled some videos. We're just not in the setup right now where I can play them and display them and we can talk shit about.
You don't just say play?
No.
Insert video. Play.
But I have been searching for a sound effect.
Why is that not happening? Play.
So every time we do this show, we are, we open up with like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? How am I doing? What's happening in the world?
What's next? Do I have
to, right? And then we roll into, hey, check out this video. So I went in and I looked up, I think, hashtag long range instructor or something like that, right? It might have been precision rifle instructor. I don't know. One of those hashtags. And I found some videos. They kind of revert back to positioning, shooting from a barricade, and recoil management. And so I've been thinking about this. We need to have like a sound effects cue. Like, it's that time of the day. Dun, dun, dun.
Let's do it. I don't know what we're waiting on.
One, I'm trying to find the right sound or right audio graphic. And two, I'm still trying to figure out how to make that a button.
You just need to go to Spencer's and just have the little, they have to have them.
Oh, that's perfect. Perfect.
Or an app on your phone. I'm sure that exists.
I need something violent. Like, we're going to get into this shit.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I'm going to work on it. I have some free time.
You have 9 days.
I don't have 9 days.
You have 9 days. Are you shooting a match?
Yes.
Of course you
See
are.
what I'm saying? I don't have 9 days. Over the next 9 days that I have available, today was the day.
Mm-hmm.
What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Tomorrow's Wednesday. You go to the range.
Out at the range.
Yes.
Thursday, occupied. Friday, range. Saturday, competition. Sunday, at the range. Monday, Falcor at the range.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, Vegas. suppressors and guns and all of that stuff. And then see you later.
All right. Well, it's nice to have you for
I'm
a day.
supposed to be on vacation. It's not feeling like a vacation.
Yeah, that's on you though. So
way to throw it back at me. I'm looking for sympathy or something.
No, you're not going to get any from me. I mean, I may have to go out there a couple days to the range with you, but yeah, whatever.
It is what it is. Hey guys, we appreciate you as always watching the show. I don't know how long it is, but if you stayed to the very end,
I'm pretty sure it's like 3 hours.
That is awesome. Appreciate it. Look for some new classes coming up here pretty soon. It looks like outside of our normal PR1, which is broken down into individual days over a 3-day time period, and the same with PR2, there's been a lot of interest in us pushing 1-day classes like what we have coming up, which is the tripod class on Sunday. The barricade class is on Sunday or Saturday. I'm getting those 2 days mixed up. But also like a 1-day competition pusher or, certain skill sets. So we'll be pushing those out. We hope to bring something to the table that you guys enjoy. I'm going to try to end this before that guy shows back up.
Yeah, because he's coming up right now.
Hey, brother, I'll catch you later.
See ya.
See you guys.